Hello, and thank you for checking out Markup AI. Our Content Guardian agents give you content control, making sure all content meets brand, terminology, integrity, and compliance standards while improving your visibility in LLMs. Markup AI works through your content workflow by checking and fixing content at creation, editorial, and publication directly inside the tools you already use. Let's walk through a quick few steps to get your trial running and get your account set up perfectly. When you first log in, you're going to be welcomed with our dashboard on the home page, where you can choose a couple of options. And first and foremost, we're going to want to configure your brand profile. And you have a couple of options here to do so. First, the easiest way is to just give us the URL to your website, and we can automatically configure your brand profile by adding in your website and clicking configure. Or you can take another approach, such as adding in specific materials you would like us to build that brand profile off of. Or you can configure things manually. We're going to go ahead and add materials to build your brand profile. So, for example, we can add a couple of different assets. First is, what are your best and most recent content pieces that we should build your profile off of? So I'm going to share a couple of items in here. I could either upload documents or add URLs. And we recommend 3 to 5 documents to get this set up. So I'm going to paste in 3 of some of our best blog posts here. And I also have a style guide that talks about the tone of voice, rules, and audiences that we create content for. So if I have it hosted on a URL, I can either link to that, or I can click to upload that, which is right here, and save and configure. Whichever direction you take, we will take those assets and start building out your voice and tone, the rules, the fingerprints, the personas, and the defined brand terms for your content. By clicking on the CTA, I can come in and add this plugin to my Google Chrome instance so I can use this in Google Docs. Now that my brand profile is finished, I can come through and spot check to make sure things look accurate. So I can come in and see which rules it is actually extracted from both my style guides and the example content that I've uploaded for it to analyze. And if I don't like some of these, I can either adjust them or delete them and remove that specific requirement. I can do that across my voice and tone, rules, fingerprints, persona, and terms, where I can identify which terms may or may not be important, and I can always add more terms should there be terms like products, branding, or industry terms that must be used correctly or that we should avoid entirely. And additionally, we can add some personas in here. We have found a handful that we can add in, but we can create a new persona, which is a great way for you to test the content you're creating against the person that it's meant for, and it will give you feedback on how well it will resonate with that audience member. And then finally, of course, whether or not you would like to have our performance optimization labs agents. These are experimental agents we're giving you access to check across a number of value add tools when checking your content. I highly recommend you keep those turned on. So the next step is for us to load a Google Doc. As you're working in Google Docs, you'll see a markup logo on the right side of your screen. This is where you can launch Markup AI. It may ask you to log into your account to make sure that we've connected you to your right brand profiles, and you have a few options here. Depending on the goal of your writing, you can either check to ensure brand consistency. You can check against the personas we've created to make sure it will connect with your reader. Do you want to make sure that the content has the right integrity, it's clear, and doesn't sound like it's written by AI or robots? Or you can improve your content to optimize it for AI search so it ranks well and gets cited well when people are searching for information about you or related to your topics using AI tools. Now, if you don't see the outcomes you're looking for, or you want to check for everything, you can take a look at all the available agents by clicking here of Viewing All Agents. This is where you can choose and select the agents you want to check against to correct your content for. And it's just as easy by checking off or on these agents and selecting check. And once our content is done being checked, we can come through and see all the issues that we need to address or may need to address depending on what we're trying to fix. We can easily filter these issues by the types of agents, so we can just take a look at a couple of agents, or we can look at all. Or we can also filter by the risk level if we consider them high issues, medium issues, or low issues. So maybe addressing the high issues is the best approach first. Let's go ahead and start fixing some of these issues. Our AI visibility agents make sure your content is easy to find in AI search, citable by LLMs, and has proper overviews when being pulled into AI overviews. So for example, let's take a look at our QA optimization. This is a great way to make sure that we are making these headers form or phrase in the questions that people ask for. So we may be saying how to deploy Synergy Tech, but we might actually want to ask the question someone is going to search for, so it's more likely to come up in an AI search. And it's as easy to make this update as just applying a change. Similarly, we have other issues such as snippet readiness, where it identifies weak citation areas or pieces of content that don't properly answer the question someone may have. So it won't be pulled into an AI overview because it isn't succinct enough. And we have ways to add comments to go ahead and fix those issues and come back and make those changes. And we can find agents in here like source authority, where we see unsupported claims that may not be true or haven't been properly cited. And a claim like this should definitely be cited so we can properly source it so it's not misleading or confusing. We also have our brand updates, which includes our brand terms, brand voice, and our persona agent. So in this example, we can see in brand terms, we have a problem with Synergy Tech. That is not how we're supposed to be saying our brand name. It is without a space, capitalized, and it's easy enough to come through and apply those changes to make sure terminology matches. Persona, for example, is going to check this content against how it will be perceived by the audience you're writing it for. So as you saw earlier, if you've created a persona, we can find causes of issue that people may have when they read this content. And this persona has a trust trigger issue here, where we also see that we're making a claim, but there is nothing that confirms what this is. What are the features? What is the sample size? How are we backing this claim up? This audience member will look at that and say, I don't trust it, which is great to know how your brand is going to be perceived or how your content will be perceived by your audience. Our compliance agent will find claims in your content that may be unsubstantiated to help you make sure you're not making claims that are going to get you in trouble. For example, if we're saying that our product is the absolute fastest cloud provider in the market, what are we comparing that to? Can we make that claim? What benchmarks are we adding this against? And in some industries, this will cause a regulatory concern. And finally, we have content integrity that's going to look for AI voice, fluff, and sentence clarity issues. And then finally, sentence clarity, which will help you find complex, difficult to read sentences and give you the opportunity to apply changes to make them much easier to read. With the Google Chrome plugin, you can easily click on this gear option icon to get back into the console to make any adjustments or changes or add users, easily reach out to help and support, or send us feedback, along with a number of different administrative options here. And of course, if you'd like, you can always change the color. Next, we're going to show you how to connect Markup AI to your favorite LLMs so you can consistently check content against brand violations, terminology, and more. In this example, we're using Claude Desktop. So the first step is to have your license of Claude Desktop or Claude, and we go into Customize. Underneath Customize, we have an option for connectors, and we are going to create a new connector under Add Custom Connector. We're going to give it a name. We're going to call it Markup AI. And underneath our documentation area, we see that we have our recipes underneath MCP for chat of Claude Desktop. And we need this MCP URL to connect it effectively to Claude. As I add that, it's going to go ahead and try and make that connection. And then I will connect it to my already existing Markup AI account, which will ask to SSO in. I will allow access. I will choose the organization I would like it to connect to. And now we're connected. I'll go back to Claude. So now we've officially connected Markup AI into Claude. And you can see here that we have all of the agents available that are considered read-only or write tools. So we can see that we can get agent details, check workflow statuses, list the available agents. And then down below, we can actually see all of the different agents we currently have access to in this connector, which is fantastic and exactly what I want. The reason why we're seeing all of these agents is because in Markup AI, I have enabled Labs Agent Access. Next, we'll add a Claude skill. Skills are a custom set of instructions you can use while working within Claude. For example, if we consistently want to check content with a specific set of Markup AI agents or personas and want to have a consistent process followed when fixing those issues, we can use a skill. Don't worry, you don't have to create one on your own. We have examples in the description below that you can download and get started with right away. Adding a skill is quite easy. If we go into our skills area, we have the option to browse or add, and I can upload a skill that I have added locally. So by adding these skills, I can then call these skills in the chat. So instead of saying, hey, check for AI visibility, and then check for terminology, and then check for a persona, I can run one of these skills that we want to make sure every piece of content consistently runs through and execute on the content that I've generated. So after I've added my skills, I see I have Governance Tier 1 and Governance Plus Labs. I know it sounds kind of funny here, but if you want to learn more, as you're under skills, you can click on these skills and learn about the instructions by viewing them in here. So this is going to talk about what are the agents? What do they do? What are the golden rules? We should always run things like terminology first. Each step should feed the next agent. What is step 2? We're going to do a sentence clarity check. What is step 3? We're going to do a brand voice drift check. So this will allow it to follow that process, the entirety through one command. You don't have to ask it to do this, and it will consistently check this content in this order and provide feedback in a consistent way. So just like I was working with a new chat, let's say I ask to generate a fresh batch of landing page copy. And we have our generated copy here that I can read through in QA, but instead, if I want to have all of those primary agents check and give feedback on this document, I can now go to my plus sign, look at my skills and say, I'm going to go with this skill that checks against all of the current generally available agents. I don't have to say anything else other than, boom, hit enter. So now while this is running, I can give it a minute or so. Maybe I'll go get a fresh cup of coffee, take a step outside for a little bit, maybe go walk the dog. Let this work its magic. So with one click of using that skill, we went through a number of our agents. And what did we check out? First, we checked for brand terminology. We then reconciled those issues, and then we went into step 2 to check for brand guidelines. We didn't see any brand voice drift checks. We verified the output of the documentation. And here is all the information of the findings and fixes that were applied in the document. And with our final text, here's what I can copy and paste and is ready for final review before it goes out. And that's how you can easily use a skill to automate this process of checking for certain things, or without using those, you can make sure that Markup AI is enabled as a connector, and you can just ask it to say things like, check for AI visibility, or just check for terminology. Or you can use this skill to automate this experience. Markup AI is purpose-built to give you consistent scoring across all of your favorite LLMs. For this example, let's generate a product README document for an upcoming release. We're working in Cursor and using Claude. And as this content is being generated, Markup AI is actually checking the content against the brand standards with our MCP connector. Since Markup AI knows your brand standards, we give those instructions to the LLMs to rewrite this content. And we can see with Markup AI, the content was generated and fixed to achieve a passing score. Now let's test this in Claude Desktop. We can take that README file we just generated, add it into Claude Desktop, and ask it to check against the style agent with Markup AI. And we will go through and give consistent feedback, regardless of model quality that you've chosen, to make sure that your content meets your brand standards. And as you can see here, regardless of the environment, we're providing a consistent and deterministic, repeatable checking experience. And in this final example, we're going to check that same generated document through the command line. Regardless of how you're interacting with your LLMs or your tools, Markup AI will provide consistent scoring via our MCP connector. And we can see here that this document was also checked and received a score of 100, giving you consistent and repeatable content quality control. If you haven't already, get started with your free account at Markup.ai, and if you have and need help, reach out to us at community.markup.ai.